This company, and this is a side story, this company was built on online lead generation. Pearson Smith was.
Okay.
So I believe in online leads fully.
This is Stay Paid, a sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business. Welcome to another episode of Stay Paid. I'm Joshua Stike along with Luke Acree. And before we bring on our guest today, we'd love it if you take a minute to subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And while you're there, drop us a review. We will read it here on the show. Our guest today is Michael Snow. Mike is a managing broker with Pearson Smith Realty out of Northern Virginia, where he spends the majority of his day coaching other agents on how to be successful in this industry by being knowledgeable in their field, responsive to clients and coworkers, and ensuring that the processes are smooth and being followed at all times. Mike, welcome to Stay Paid. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Mike, man, I'm excited to interview not only for your knowledge and your wisdom, but Mike is a Commanders fan.
Oh, gosh.
And he's one of, Josh was like, I can't take this. Yep, he's got his hat. He's holding it up. Now, this is what a lot of people don't know about me. I grew up a die-hard Washington Redskins fan.
Yep.
Now, I feel like Dan Snyder has destroyed the team. Comment on the YouTube video if you feel the same. I feel like, man, he's just done a terrible job with the team and everything. But, I feel like I don't run into many Washington Commanders fans.
What? I feel like all we run into are Commanders fans around you.
We're lonely out there in the world. But I'll tell you, man, the Eagles, which, I can't help but root for the Eagles a little bit, but it's really hard because they're in our division. But I'm local here.
Yeah.
We were
when you get to the games,
we were the only team. Yeah, we were the only team to knock the Eagles off.
So far.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going to bring that type of strategy of how to beat the number one team in the NFL, how to beat the number one agent.
Stop the undefeated.
Team. Yeah, stop the undefeated in your industry. But before we get to that, Mike, can you tell a little bit about your story, how you got into real estate and ultimately managing like you are?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, and you know what? The Commanders, I don't know if you saw it earlier today, but we just got flexed into the Sunday night game.
I saw that.
Here in a couple of weeks. So I felt like, I was like, oh my God, we are a real football team. We're actually getting flexed into a primetime game. Haven't heard that in a long time.
Yep.
But yeah, no, so got started in real estate. I got licensed back in 2011. And honestly, I grew up here. I mean, I bounced around the country. My dad was in the Secret Service, so moved around quite a bit. Landed here in '98 in Northern Virginia. Went to high school, college in Virginia. Got out and ended up getting married in 2008. And I went to work for a defense contractor. So I did the big company. And I thought that was what I wanted, right? Come out and work for some big Fortune 500. Unfortunately, it took my soul from me. It was got in there where they made you work 7 days a week. I'm sorry, 6 days a week. They gave you Sunday off. Probably the guy I worked for believed in working no more than 11 hours a day because he thought after 11 hours in your day, that was kind of like your productivity started to slip. So, And then as time went on, I went and worked there for a couple of years. But when my wife and I started to say, hey, we want to start a family, the defense contracting money wasn't enough to, I wanted to say to my wife, hey, if you want to take a year off financially so you can, be with our child, I'd like to be able to do that. But I couldn't with just the what I was making. So I ended up getting my real estate license and everything I made for the year and a half leading up to the birth of our first child, we socked it all away. So by the time it happened, she was able to take the year off.
That's
right?
Awesome.
Yeah, so it was really kind of cool. Did it, but then in the meantime, kind of got into it, and I was like, man, I really love this. And so I started to do both of them essentially full time because I enjoyed real estate. So I would work that any extra time I had outside of my 9 to 5. And then a funny story, I started in 2011 at a local shop around the corner. I got I sat down at the orientation. It's only me and one other person. And it happened to be a guy named Eric Pearson, who I played basketball with in high school. So I was his point guard. He was a shooting guard. Oh, and I'm like, oh, hey, what's going on, man? And he's like, oh, I got my real estate license. I'm joining a team. I say, oh, that's cool. I got my license. I'm joining a team. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years later, and he said, I'm going to start my own brokerage. My uncle's a CFO at a big company. I've got a large team that I want to create my own thing. I know you're in management over here at this defense contractor. Do you want to be my first broker? So so that's kind of how that all started. So I was able to then leave the defense contracting world, go into his new company, and was able to kind of go off and running from there.
What year was that you became a broker?
2014, no, 15.
How many agents do you have now today?
We are pushing 1,000 agents, if not 1,000. But we started back in 2015 with about 15, 16 agents.
Incredible, man. And you spend the majority of your time, we were talking a little bit about this, coaching your agents. I think you said like 80% of your day is really spent on coaching. So you have the unique position of being the last interview released, I think, in 2022. So we're going to hit you with the question, probably the last question of the year. What are you coaching agents heading in to 2023 this year?
Yeah, super simple. And I truly believe this is you gotta focus on what you can control. Because I tell you, it's right now, you can't control the inflation. You can't control the interest rates. You can't control these other items out there that just, you literally can't. It just takes up your mind in a negative way. So what I'm really focusing on is what you can do. And I'm a big prospector, right? So I shouldn't say this lightly, but I truly believe I can teach you how to write a contract. I can teach you how to do a presentation. I can teach you how to take you from contract to close. And I don't want to say that's the easy part, but essentially it is once you figure it out. The hardest part is to get that revenue or that the flow of new business in consistently. So everything that I'm about is making sure that, we call them pillars or categories, making sure that your pillars of your business are very well defined. Don't go too many. We usually say, hey, let's try to find 2 to 4 pillars of your business. Let's come up with a really detailed marketing plan for each one of those pillars, and then we're going to stick to it. So usually my flow is when I meet with an agent for the first time, we have 6 circles. I know there's other coaches out there that might have 5. We have 6. And we make sure that in every area of your circle, whether it's professional, health, financial, spiritual, growth, we make sure your goals are very well outlined, the SMART methodology on being specific and measurable, right? So that's step 1. Like we want to, the Stephen Covey, start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
We really want you to have those outlined in detail, right? Then next, from a business perspective, we then write you a very solid business plan. Okay, here are my 2 to 4 pillars. Now, how many transactions are we trying to figure out to get into those 2 to 4 pillars that are going to hit the revenue or transactional goals that you want to accomplish? And then from there is what are the detailed things that you need to do? And then I always use this for an example, like open houses. If open houses is a business builder for you, how many open houses is going to take for you to reach the number of transactions out of that pillar? And so we usually start with like large National Association of Realtors statistics. So they say it takes 10 open houses conducted to lead to a sale for you, whether it's selling the house that you're selling or selling a house to an unrepresented buyer that comes in somewhere else down the line. Now, as you get more skilled at that and you track your numbers, it could be 2, it could be 7, but we start with that, right? So if you want to do X amount of deals in the open house category, we're using that as a target to start until we can figure out what your true statistic is for that pillar. And then last but not least, we roll into our schedule, right? So we start with our goals, we create our business plan, and then I have a very detailed scheduling review process to where I take a Google Calendar, a notebook just like this, and we make sure we are blocking through a weekly and monthly basis. So we're chipping away at everything that we set out to accomplish.
I love that. I want to go deeper. We're coaching a couple new agents right now that are close to us, just family, friends and stuff. And, they're just getting started in the business. And like you, I'm trying to get them up to like 4 pillars, as you're calling it, like 4 lead categories. One is sphere. We're trying to sphere of influence, right? So friends, family, that type of idea. So that's going to be your referral business, right? Or maybe even business from them. Then you have Facebook leads we're doing for them. So they're running Facebook ads. Then one that we're doing is open houses. And then the other one that they're going to start doing is FSBOs and expireds. to try to build their database. I'm curious because the struggle now is, okay, they got the 4 lead sources. Yeah. How much activity, which is the schedule, like this is the hard part, right? So, one of them's named Andrea, right? So like her sphere, I think she has 35 people or 36 in her sphere right now.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like the schedule you would see in mind for somebody with their sphere, of trying to work their sphere and trying to get them to get business, do that, or referrals. Yeah. What do you see as the daily activity or what they should be doing?
No, that's a great question. And the first, it starts with just building out the plan in general. So like for sphere of influence, which I know it should be, unless you're, unless you're brand new to a certain area or didn't grow, is in our minds, we definitely 100% want to send, we first create a database, right? So like you said, she has 36 people.
Yep.
That's great, but I really would love to get that to like 250 people. So right off the bat, we're trying to create some sort of goal and target to pick up a couple different people a week that we can add to that database. That's number one. Number two is we 100% want to get something in the mail to them every month. We 100% want to get something in their email every month. And again, this is why I love your guys' stuff so much. I've been using your Reminder Media magazine monthly for 7 years. So that's a give, and that just goes out, right? And I think I've gotten, again, not to say, and I know you have to look at budgets and everything. So I have about 250 people in my database. I send half of those people the magazine. So half get your magazine every time the issue comes out. All 250 people, they get my email hands down. I'd love to get that 250 to probably 350, 450 would be ideal. So there's those two things there. But then there's also statistics out there that show that from an SOI perspective, you want to be reaching out to, they say hypothetically, like at least the numbers in my world, for every 45 touches in your network or in your sphere, it should lead to a sale.
Interesting.
So so what that means is when you look at it, and then that goes back to the business plan. So if I'm looking at, again, I don't have my spreadsheet up in front of me, but if I had in there, hey, I want to do 10 transactions out of my sphere of influence. Well, that means 10 times whatever 45 comes up. That's how many touches I need to get. And then I break it down into a weekly and a monthly touch. So every week going into that week, and when we talk about our scheduling assignment that I do, because the business plan has to happen first, I take up their business plan. I say, all right, Luke, we've got it shows here on the math that based on the number of transactions you want to do, we actually need to be proactively having a real estate related discussion or a meeting or a coffee meetup or something with 5 people in your sphere every single week. And so that's how we approach it and say we back into the numbers. Or for like the open house pillar, I need to do 3 open houses every month to be able to hit the numbers I need to do 7 transactions in this year. And then that's the starting point. And then that's why we're really, really anal on tracking everything you do, because for all we know, it's 30 conversations with your sphere to lead to a deal for you, Luke. With Josh, it's 45 for you, or vice versa.
I'm not as good a talker as Luke is, so it takes me longer.
I have the gift of gab.
The open houses, Mike, the open houses, you said 3, the example was like 3 a week or something like that. Is that listings that you've taken, or are you doing open houses? You're coaching people to take open houses with other agents?
Anybody in our brokerage. Like technically, putting my broker hat on, it's got to be within your own brokerage.
Yep.
At least in our jurisdictions.
Right.
And so, but no, I really, and I had a huge conversation with a couple of our agents last week, and I said to myself, hey, your numbers aren't where they want to be. So why aren't you taking an open house every weekend or one on Saturday and Sunday? If you don't have something else in your schedule that would lead to business generation or executing in the business, why wouldn't you just take an open house? Even if no one walks in, you could be doing handwritten notes or executing on another pillar of your business while you're there. Because, and again, I always go back to, I love open houses because you're belly to belly with people. And this company, and this is a side story, this company was built on online lead generation. Pearson Smith was.
Okay.
So I believe in online leads fully. Like I think it sometimes, I know there are other big names out there that disregard online leads, but this company is living proof that online leads are legit. But it's like, why not have the opportunity to meet somebody that possibly would need your help? It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's why some people are like, well, it's just a slow time of year. You know, the open houses in November last year were way better than they were this November. And it's like, I hear what you're saying, but what's the alternative? Our job is to meet new people and to cultivate those relationships. And open houses, in my opinion, could be the best.
No, I agree. Like my brother Steven, who I talk about a lot on the show, like one of the biggest pillars for him to build his whole business was open houses. How would you approach, because I just want to get deep, like tactical, like, I told the agents we coach, hey, reach out to other agents and offer to run their open houses. How should an agent approach another agent, like in your mind, to get the permission and ability to run their open house? How would that tactically look in your mind?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And it's so funny because, a lot of times you're thinking strategically, how do I go out and find new business? And we kind of took that approach here in house with some of our coaching. And, there are some agents that really took it to heart. And then there are other agents that just do your typical, hey, let me pick up a phone call. But ideally, I would say it's all about the value proposition. And so when I say that, say I'm a newer agent, I just got licensed, in my world, I tell them, I say, hey, I'm going to give you my broker codes, right? So our broker codes are PSTH1, PSTH2, and those codes will align with the agents that hang in our different offices. And so I say, hey, go on there onto our MLS, go in there, plug it in, see who the agents are who have the listings, reach out to them and let them know what you're going to be doing for them at that open house. And I use myself as an example in my coaching sessions. And I say to them, when I have a listing and there was a woman that used to work with us, she would come to me and say, hey, Mike, this is what I'm going to do for you. I am going to do a $25 Facebook spend on your listing. I'm going to go knock on all the neighbors' doors and invite them to your listing. When I first get to the listing, I'm going to tell you how many people have come through in the first hour, the second hour, the third hour. And the reason why I like that is because you're always trying to make the listing agent look good.
Love that,
and you want to turn around and then go tell the owner, hey, look what we're doing for you. And if you have multiple things going on at once, you, the listing agent, who's more of a producer, doesn't have time to go run 3 listings in the same weekend. So I'm looking for somebody to hold my open house that's going to do a killer job. They're going to hopefully pick up some business, but they're also going to make me look really good in the process.
Yeah, it's such good. Yeah, it's golden nugget right there.
I love the fact that, like, when you're offering to do an open house for someone, you think you're, in a way you're helping. And I think in a lot of ways you can be, but getting a value proposition and basically saying, hey, you can trust me to do this because I'm going to drive traffic. I'm going to represent this well. You mentioned 45 or like number of touches with your database. You mentioned a couple mailers. Are you also coaching on calling your sphere? If so, how often? Do you do text messages? Do you do any other touch points other than the mailers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big fan of client events as well, right? So, I mean, my business particularly, and that's why I talk to a lot with who I coach, is because I know it the best, is I try to do 2 to 3 client events every year. And so in those client events, I use that as an opportunity to be able to reach out about 5 or 6 different times leading up to the event and then after.
Yeah, it's so good.
Can you give us an example of an event? Like, what's an example?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get this one rocking a little bit more because this is my little project, but I host a putt-putt tournament every year.
Oh,
a putt-putt tournament. That's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just something, and I always kind of think of it to myself as like, listen, I'm not, I like to have fun and I like to do fun things. And, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe other people like to do it. So every year I take I rent out this putt-putt course in my town. And then I invite everyone, all 250 people in my network get invited to that. I usually have about 50 show up, 50, 60 people, right?
That's awesome.
But that's okay because, and what I tell all my agents it's just the invite, right? I want you to hear from me 4, 5, 6 different times in an appreciative way to say, hey, I know you're going to think of me when it comes to buying or selling a house. I know that's a given, but I want to say thank you for all the support, and I want you to come out and have a good time. It cost me like $300 or $400 between the putt ticket, and I just get water. And I always make a joke out of it because I'm not doing this big, like, huge food spread. I'm like, you're going to have the coldest water in town, and you're going to have a putt tournament. And oh, by the way, the top 2 adults and the top 2 kids get prizes. So, and they're good prizes. Like I gave AirPods away and Kindle Fire and something else.
Oh,
so
that's great.
In all, it cost me $1,000, but I got to reach out to my network of people in the middle of summer about 5 or 6 different times.
Yeah, it's so good. Another great one that I just saw, we were mentioning Shannon Gillette before we came on. She's a great person to follow on social. And she does photography for her sphere. So she invites all of the family for like holiday photos. It's like usually around Thanksgiving time frame. And
she
it's
hires
like,
a photographer to take their family photos.
That's awesome.
for like 4 or 5 hours, and it's just such a big hit, or at least it looks that way from her social and what you get. I mean, because everybody wants a family photo, and you're getting it for free from a professional photographer. We have heard, just so the audience knows, like client events consistently comes up as one of the massive pillars of really generating leads and referrals. And not just real estate, tons in real estate, but in insurance and financial advising. Like, it's amazing the amount of guests we have come on that swear by client events. Can you talk to us? Because, I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I want to know about, like, agents don't want to pick up the phone and call. You guys built Pearson on, internet leads. How do you guys convince agents to pick up the phone and call their leads consistently? And how many times are you recommending people to call a lead?
Are we talking? So we're talking about online leads now, right?
Yeah, online leads. Yeah.
Yeah. No, here's the thing. Online leads are not for everybody. But when Eric started his company or started his team back at it was a Remax. Back in the day, he started buying Zillow leads when they were like $25 a pop.
Oh,
back in 2011. And it was a really cool story. It's like, he'd take as many as he could, and then he couldn't take any more. So he brought in this, he's the guy still with us named Sean Resmont. We call him Agent Zero because he was the first guy on his team. Then he brought Sean in, then he brought more. He kept buying and buying and buying. And that's one of the things about it was, like, he saw the value in the online leads. And then he went out to everywhere, right? Facebook, Google, everywhere. Yep. But it is a well-known thing, and we know it. But, if you get to that lead, I'm not sure you guys do Facebook leads, correct?
Yeah, we do Facebook ads for people. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Facebook, Google, all of those very, very, I would highly promote it, but you have to know what you're doing with the leads when you get them, right? Yeah. So if I'm buying that lead, and I hate when people say, oh, it's a bad lead. These are bad leads. No, it's not a bad lead. It's just you have to set the expectations. So in my mind, if I'm a Facebook lead, and again, I know it's different for different regions, that's like a pay-per-click. So it's going to get a 1 to 3% conversion rate, give or take, right? So knowing that coming in, if I was to buy leads from a Facebook, I know that I have to have anywhere from 70 to 100 leads coming in to give myself an opportunity to close on one. But that being said, when that lead comes in, it's in my mind, and this is how I was trained and how I trained our agents, because I ran our lead team for 5 years, is it's speed to lead, right? That lead comes in, it hits your inbox. I'm calling within 30 seconds, like hands down, right? And then on top of that, you have to have CRMs in place. Automatic text goes out, automatic email goes out. I'm calling right away. I'm setting up a home search that very day. And then going forward, I'm calling every day for the next 7 to 9 days consistently until I make contact or until they pick up and tell me one reason or another to stop, or, hey, I've been busy. Because all the stats show that once you hit call or contact like 6, 7, 8, it's like a hockey stick, right? Yep. So it's like a unicorn when you call that first time and they pick up and it's like, oh, great, let's go see. No, it's like, it's not happening until you're calling on the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th time.
So good. Spot on. Like, we've been doing Facebook ads for years, but only offering it to agents for probably 6 months now, something like that. Yeah. But it's like everything you just said. So if you guys want to, just a quick crash course on internet leads, that's spot on. Seeing the same conversion, same type of, we're recommending at least calling 12 to 18 times over the course of 2 weeks. The same type of idea. And I try to tell people, like, it's what you said, expectations, top of funnel, middle of funnel, And rarely will you get bottom of funnel with Facebook leads. You're usually somewhere between top of funnel, middle of funnel, which means you what? You have to nurture them. You have to drip on them. You have to spend time with them to get them to the point of a transaction. Rarely will you have someone, it does happen, but rarely do you have people that literally pick up and go, yeah, I want to buy it tomorrow. It's going to be a process.
I mean, our most successful agents here at the company who started on the online lead business, for example, there's a guy named Gunther here who I love. He was and he still is one of our top lead converters. But when he first started with us, he didn't close his first online lead until month 7.
Yeah.
And now he's one of our top producers. I was watching a video the other day. There's a gentleman out of Canada. I can't remember what show or what podcast I was watching, but his whole business, he's like the largest online lead purchaser in Canada. And he threw out a statistic on the panel he was on. He said, listen, he's like, I just closed 4 deals last week. He's like, from the time those 4 deals came in until the time I closed them, it was an average of 410 days. Ooh. So he closed 4 deals last week, but it's like, wow, he's doing amazing. But from the first time it came into his funnel until he actually got him to the table, they averaged out to 410 days.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Yeah, we're seeing, like with my brother, we saw about 6 months. It was about 6 months.
And it shows you the value of those other pillars, because you have to do something between then and 400 and day 410.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like you're saying, like, that's amazing, but that's not what the real estate agent thinks. They think 6 months is like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And you're like, no, that is like insanely short. You're really probably going to be 9 months to 12 months, that you get.
If your brother's getting 6 months, I mean, that's amazing. He should be teaching a course of some kind or whatever.
I'm trying to get him to, but he doesn't love me enough. I'm trying to get him to, but
man, like 6 months.
He's too busy building his empire. He's like, I don't have time for this. No.
I don't have time for you.
Incredible,
funny.
Mike. No, we really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your knowledge and sharing your experience. Before we close out, please let people know how they can connect with you.
Yeah, no, it's so my email, snow@pearsonsmithrealty.com is my email address. If anybody wants to talk about, that whole process of goals to business plan to scheduling, I'd be happy to chat with anybody who wants to learn more.
Awesome, brother. We appreciate it. And thank you all so much for listening. If you like this episode and want to dive deeper, you can get the show notes over at staypaidpodcast.com. And to show your support for the show, simply head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a 5-star rating along with a comment there. And the best way to show your support is to simply share this episode with a friend. Tell someone else about it. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And, of course, you can find us on social media. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. What a great episode. Mike, thank you so much, man, for coming on. Not only are you a Commanders fan, but you just delivered so much gold. I appreciate it. What a great way to close out 2022. What a great episode, last guest of the year. And here's my action item for you, right? It's perfect. It's, do you have your goal set, your lead pillars set, right? 2 to 4 lead pillars, and your daily activity that you're going to execute on in 2023. I know it's near the end of the year, but you still have time. You can pull some all-nighters. You probably did that in college. Do it again. Remember, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every single business is top producers take action. Take action on that today.